When we do the sharing the screen thing, where do you do it?
So you'll just hover over your
Oh, I see
face.
right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I can do that. I know you're like, God, could anyone do that?
No, 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 no. It's cool. Technology, right? It's
Oh yeah.
crazy. So, hey guys, can you see us? Can you hear us? Otherwise, it's just me and Sean hanging out. Wasn't sure. We are gone live, but that doesn't always mean everything because with the internet, you never know. So type in the chat if you can hear us, if you can see us. Yep. Excellent. Good, good. It's great to see you, Michelle, Jennifer. Hey, Lorraine, how are you doing? Jeff, I'm Jeff, LA major Sean Adams fanboy. I think all of us are.
It's like one person in the world likes me. That's great.
Oh my God, you're so funny. Thank you, Marina. I really appreciate it. Awesome. Good. Great, great. So we're going to start in just a minute here. If you guys will help me out and copy the URL at the top, send it out to your friends and your family, your loved ones. Tell them we are just getting started. Share it out on social media, whatever it takes for us to be able to share the story. We're going to talk about type in education at ArtCenter specifically. So I'm really excited because even though I've probably taught a couple classes at ArtCenter at night, I never took any of the classes during the day. I know that there's a really extensive program, and I love seeing the work from the grad show that I just saw. So I'm really interested to find out how that comes out. So Rachel's here. She's, I've been using Sean Adams' color design workbook as a textbook for years. Very excited.
Oh, that's great. I'm so glad. That was such a fun book to make. I love that thing.
When was that book released, Sean?
I think it was like 2015, 2016, something like that. It's been a while, and there's been a couple of editions so far. And you know, like I mentioned earlier, I'm working on the follow-up to it right now, which is the Dictionary of Typefaces. So, which is actually much harder to do than the color book. The color book was like, you know, you just look for cool stuff in color. But the typeface book, you know, it's like someone says, well, find a great example of Caslon. And I'm like, huh, what is that? You know? And it's really hard to call up someone and say, hey, could you send me some cool thing you did in Caslon? And I'm like, I don't know. I can't think of anything. So.
Oh my gosh, that must be a task. I mean, there are maybe over 300,000 typefaces out or fonts right now.
Yeah, and that's the scary thing too, is like trying to decide what to put in there because I only have 256 pages. Okay. So it ends up, I did an interview yesterday about it, and you know, the interviewer said, well, how did you decide on, you know, these typefaces, you know, because there's a serif section, a sans serif, slab serifs. And I said, I just picked the ones I like. That was, you know, like, it's my book, so what the hell? I'll just pick the one that works.
Exactly.
If there's a follow-up, I'll add more, but for now, it's the ones I like best.
So volume 1 is the ones you like, and then volume 2 and 3 are...
Yeah, the ones. I mean, there's a couple in there I don't like, because I thought I need to put in some stuff that I think is hideous, but other people might love. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it's things like Broadway, which is... Yeah. Yes. You know, but I did find an amazing example of Broadway from a remarkable firm in Spain. So,
great.
Yeah, it's a little digging and you'll find like even bad typefaces someone could do something good with.
And there's always something to do with them, right? It can't, I mean, they're not terribly flexible, but you can always find a time and place for every font.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I just want to bring this really quick. So Ivy is in and she says, I've been a big fan of Sean's videos on LinkedIn. They really help me as I don't have a formal design background. Thank you.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Yeah, that's the point of them, is just to get out there and you know, spread a little knowledge for, you know, just anybody who wants access.
And she says, Linda, so what is the formal term? Is it lynda.com? Is it LinkedIn Learning? How do you guys refer to yourselves?
I think, well, up until the last month, it was lynda.com. And then I was up there actually a couple of weeks ago shooting a new one. And they were like very clear, we're LinkedIn Learning now. Just everything's LinkedIn Learning. Don't even refer to it as lynda.com, okay. Which is just very strange, you know. But you know, because LinkedIn bought Lynda, right, and Microsoft bought LinkedIn. So it's two versions away. And but it's amazing to go out there and boy, you know, that production facility, it's in Carpinteria, is the largest production facility north of Los Angeles in the country.
Really?
Yeah, it's a monster. It's incredible. I mean, they've got multiple television studios and recording studios and sound booths and editing bays, and it's crazy.
Wow, I had no clue.
Yeah, I mean, I'd go up and I'd be the only person shooting up there, and now you go up and there'll be like 20 people shooting.
That's great.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
A lot of learning. So what I want to do is just cover a couple questions. We won't take too much time, but I thought maybe we can start with the introduction. If you guys don't know who Sean Adams is, I thought maybe we'd start there. We are both, actually, Sean and I are both in Pasadena right now. So I'm Rachel Elnar, I'm host of Typography Dojo. And I am a partner in TypeEd. We teach typography education to many different in-house studios, agencies, and freelancers. And just down the street is ArtCenter, where, Sean, that's where you are right now. Is that correct?
That's where I am right now. I mean, welcome to come down any day and save me from my lunch that I bring, my sad sandwich.
And so what do you do there on a normal basis?
I'm the chair of the graphic design program. So I mostly try to mess up people's lives. I find that is, hopefully we're educating designers to be amazing people and succeed incredibly well.
And you have your hand in both the graphic design and the master's program as well too, or no?
Yeah. About 3 years ago, I was, I've been in the full-time faculty for a while. Like even during the years that I was at Adams Morioka, I was about 10 of those. I was a full-time faculty member, and so finally I said, we don't have a graduate program here, and oddly, our graduate program in graphic design was ranked number 7 in the country, though we didn't have one. So
wow.
Why don't we have one? We might go up higher if we actually do that. So I designed a graduate program and a curriculum, and found some remarkable faculty and brought them in, and started that about 3 years ago. And then just last year, Nick Hoffermas, who was the previous chair, decided to go back to Berlin, where he's from, and work. So the baton got passed along, and so now I sort of oversee both.
That's great. Awesome. Well, if you guys have any questions, feel free to throw them into the chat or use the Ask a Question tab underneath and throw your question in there, and we'll cover the questions afterwards. So Sean, let's do the share the screen and go over some of the visuals, and then we can talk about a bit more about the curriculum and center in general.
Is that working?
Yeah.
Cool. I just wanted to look at that for a long time.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow, I love that. So I just pulled together, the keynote just to give a sense of some of the things that we're working on here and how it works at ArtCenter. So, and I'll go through this quickly, and if anyone has any questions, feel free to throw them out there. The program has 2 sections. There's GX and MGX, which translates into the undergrad graphics. MGX stands for the X factor, sort of more, but something every individual designer brings to it. And then, of course, the master's program, which is MGX. The work is a real range of stuff. This is just one of our galleries of some of the graduate work, and additional work in the other side of it, the gallery. Although half the time I feel like it looks like all we do is design posters, they're the things that fit on the wall, but there's all kinds of other work going on. Also, things that are, always changing and moving around. And one of the big things we really stress in both programs is research and strategy and looking at the bigger picture, and not just designing things to look pretty, but designing things to solve problems and address bigger business issues, which is how you stay vital as a designer and keep getting hired. And it's a lot of work. People look at the gallery and they're like, I can never do that. Forget it. There's no way. But believe me, the people that are doing it are saying the same thing. And they're just, working like crazy. And it's some examples of, even like, one of the requirements we have is everyone has to learn how to work in the shop. So they have to make things, which at the beginning, of course, everyone's like, I don't need to learn how to use a bandsaw. But once they figure it out, they start making all kinds of cool things. And there's lots of time spent, you know, I mean, this is like Chris Hacker and Jan Fleming and I just working with Z, who's one of our amazing students, late at night, you know, in the cafeteria. And it's a nice range of people that we have. There's me as the acting chair and executive director, and then Chris Hacker, who was the chief creative officer at Johnson & Johnson, and then at Herman Miller, who is one of a kind, amazing. And Steve Kim, who manages everything and makes sure everyone is on track. And we've got an amazing, you know, coordinator and administrative assistant. We have a huge faculty. We actually have 19 full-time faculty members and 45 part-time faculty.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy, like how many people we can get in there, which I'm always like, how can that be, you know? Let me move over to this one. Okay. Let me go through this. Okay. Way to click through this quickly because this is going too slow.
It's okay.
It's like driving me nuts. It's like Keynote is going to drive me to murder.
It's totally fine.
Hey, but it's better than like PowerPoint, right? Like,
oh my gosh, tell me about it.
When a client's like, oh, could you do it in PowerPoint? I'm like, no, please, I'm begging you. I can't. I don't want to go near it. It's not anything I know how to do whatsoever.
One thing I notice about the work coming out of Art Center is there's a lot of experimentation. That's more so than I see in other schools. Is there something, I mean, and like, so we spoke to Abby Guido from Tyler School a couple of weeks ago, and theirs is very, I mean, the people coming out of Tyler have a very illustrative, very lettering feel. The stuff coming out of Art Center is very experimental. Where do you think, I mean, where does that come from? Is there influence by the school?
I mean, it's a good question, and it's a great segue sort of into you know, sort of like what do we believe graphic design is and what it should be. Okay. You know, one of the big things it's this idea that designers can change the world, and that we expect the people who graduate from the program to lead the profession, not just follow it, like not just be the people that are making lovely wine labels and going home and that's enough. We want people to say, I'm gonna shake things up. I'm gonna try things no one's ever done before. I'm gonna push technology to its limits and really push it. But at the same time, you know, you can do that. And I think you can go off the rails if you just are like, just experiment and do wacky little stuff. So focusing on just craft, like, can you, you know, that's what separates you from a hack, and strategic thinking. And then doing this cross media. So it's experimental in terms of they might push a concept that's not the ordinary, but then it has to be played out across, you know, everything. Like it's not just, you can't just do a one-off like, oh, I did a poster. It's like, no, okay, great. Now how does that idea translate to something in motion? How does it translate into packaging? Which is really how we, you know, as professionals, like, you know, that's how we work. You know, nobody does just one thing at a time. And it's sort of our job to, you know, be sitting at the C-level table and bringing real solutions that really solve the problems. Like you said, we're in Pasadena, you're down the street. We have a Hillside campus, which has been there for about 40 years. We also have a South campus, which looks like a big toaster building. Much cooler on the inside. And there's an old post office building that houses an illustration department, and a wind tunnel that is across the street from us with a type center. And then the work in the program is, like I said, it's this balance of manual and digital skills, and we have multiple areas of emphasis. So, you know, everyone starts learning how to do sort of the basics, but at a certain point, people sort of start branching into more specific areas like, oh, I really, really love the packaging projects. I'm going to do more of that. Or I really am interested in leadership. I want to graduate and I want to run a department. Like, how do I know how to do that? And so we sort of allow people that flexibility to do it. But at the core of it is typography. I mean, typography is the spine of the program. It's what drives everything. It's critical. And you can see it in the work, you know, it's typographically refined. You know, we might play with ideas, but there's no excuse for sloppy type. No, it's you know, push the ideas, and you know, play with issues of new technologies like, you know, projection mapping and information design, which is always remarkable that, you know, someone can figure out how to do that. And then exploring like different cultures, like really digging into subcultures, really digging into our impact as designers on society, and, you know, recognizing the responsibilities we have as designers for the messages we put out there. And it's a lot of work. It's like, you know, putting the work up and then sitting in crits for 5 hours, and you know, it's a lot of work, but it seems fun to me. We have amazing visiting artists. That's a really big core of it. I found when I was in school that I remember the visiting artists more than I remembered most of my classes. And so, you know, and it's, I mean, I'm lucky, you know, I think like, well, you know, I mean, you and I, you know, with our AIJ world, that you kind of, you know, get to be friends with almost everybody. And so you can call up someone like Paul and say, you want to come out in February? It's freezing in New York. I'll give you a break, you know, and come out and visit and do a workshop. Or, you know, Sue Matthews Hale, who's up in San Francisco, or Jessica Helfand, who's, you know, a genius and an amazing writer for Design Observer. Eric Hyman at Volume up in San Francisco was just here about a month ago. Bielenberg just came and did a workshop with all of the graduate students on thinking wrong, which was great. And then the funny thing is, it followed up. I talked to one of the, Jan Fleming, who's one of the faculty members, and she just did a session with John with a group of nuns on thinking wrong.
Wow.
Yeah, I guess he came out here and he met these nuns on his trip and was like, they said, we need the same thing. So,
wow, that's
so it was nuts. And then, you know, I think Michael Beirut's coming in the fall. He's going to do a workshop with us. And Jennifer Morla, Vanderbilt was here a couple months ago. And then ArtCenter is sort of famous for its sponsored projects that, you know, a lot of corporations come to the school and want to partner with students to come up with real solutions for real world issues. So it gives an opportunity to, you know, not just be theoretical, but to sort of say, well, I want to do something and I want to see how it really works. We have the amazing Type Center. It's the only Type Center in the country. Design Matters is a minor that a lot of our students take, and that is designed for social responsibility. It's the only UN certified NGO in the academic world.
Outstanding.
It's amazing. That's a great program. And then, of course, you know, we have the Berlin studio, which happens every term. There's a group out there working on one specific project. But, you know, I mean, in the end, it does boil down to this. You know, the program is about the individual designers. It's not our job to make someone our kind of a designer. It's our job to make every designer be the best designer they are. You know, that's the most important thing. So that's sort of a quick overview of you know, how that works. Okay.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Hey guys, so if you have any questions, go ahead and feel free to put them in the chat. Otherwise, I have a ton of questions for you, Sean.
Yeah.
Starting with just going backwards on the sponsored projects, how is that set up?
So typically what will happen is a corporation or an organization will come to the school and say, we have a specific project. We need something to be addressed. So for example, it was like a term and a half ago, NASA and JPL came to me and said, we are planning the Europa mission, which is, you know, an unmanned mission to Europa, which is one of the moons of Jupiter, which supposedly has an underground or an under ice ocean. So they said, well, we need to plan this, but the problem is we don't have the same level of excitement that the early Apollo missions had. But people are all stoked about like SpaceX. How do we get the same level of excitement? So
what a great problem.
It was a great problem, exactly. And so it's like a group of about 20 students, and they came back with different solutions of like ways of getting sort of a younger audience jazzed about what NASA and JPL is doing with the Europa mission. And then, you know, they take it, you know, all the students get a stipend because we don't want them working like slave labor, you know, and they they take the idea away, and then they say, okay, well, we're going to figure it out, and then we're ready to go. We'll hire someone who's graduating, and maybe they take over the project. Or we did another one with the city of Long Beach, which this one was hilarious. It was all about STDs in Long Beach. I don't know if there's a lot more STDs in Long Beach than anywhere else, but they, for whatever reason, they wanted a campaign to combat STDs, and so we put a crew on it. And then they created a fellowship for the city. So one of the students is down there working for a year to work the whole project through. So it's a good experience. It gets the students in front of corporations that will hire them. And, it's all about contacts. They graduate, they go get a job from them, or they get them as clients. And it sort of reminds people, we make a difference as designers. We're not just whittling away in our kitchens.
Right.
That you can really change lives with what we do. So I think they enjoy it.
It's great. It must be very satisfying for you as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Marina says, yeah, no more just make it pretty, which is a great comment. Yeah. Okay, so
to make something pretty for sure, but that gets boring after a while.
Well, there has to be a function to it.
Exactly, yeah.
So let me ask you a little bit about the typography. So what is the curriculum of the typography classes, or how do students learn type throughout the undergrad program, for example?
It's funny. I just assumed our type program was like everyone else's. And it wasn't until we started bringing in graduate students that I realized how different other programs' type curriculum was to ours. And it turns out we're pretty OCD about the whole thing. So ArtCenter is the wrong place to go if you don't like type. It's like it starts off in the first term of your undergraduate, and that's a class where it's really about drawing letter forms, and everybody hates it. Everybody complains, like, I don't want to have to draw letter forms. I'm never going to do it. But it's like drawing. It teaches you to see. It's like once you've figured out how to draw a perfect bedonnier, you will never see, you will see a bad curve the rest of your life.
Yes.
You see it, like it's there. And there's only one way of doing that, is just getting in the trenches and actually using, the thing that God gave you, your opposable thumb, to draw. And then they move into type 2, which is about hierarchy and form. And that goes back to old school Basel assignments of take accents, grotesque in one weight and one size, work with it. Now add a weight, now add a size, now add a color, and just keep exploring more and more and more. So you get this remarkable process of understanding you can do a lot with just one thing. And then it moves into upper term classes, which have to do with publication design, when they start working with sequence, type in motion design, type in space, which has a couple of venues. One working with Wayne Hunt, who's a master and a legend in wayfinding and signage.
Yeah.
And then also working with interactive typography and seeing, well, how can it behave in space, with the responsive technology. So it's an ongoing thing. I don't think there's a term anyone has the entire time they're here where they're not taking some form of a type class.
So undergrads go through 8 terms, don't they?
8 terms, yeah. And even though we may not be calling it a type class, it's a type class.
Wow.
Nothing gets, you can't take editorial design without recognizing, no, I'm actually learning how to manage typography, in editorial and content.
Got it. Okay. Also, so have you taught at other schools before?
I have, yeah. I actually taught at CalArts for about 3 years when I was in my 30s. And I started out actually at ArtCenter. I started out teaching at ArtCenter. I think I was like 24, and everyone in my class that I was teaching was older than me, which was totally scary. And then after a few years at ArtCenter, Lorraine Wild at CalArts asked me, could you come out here? We really need some help. So I did that for a while, and then my professional life kind of got in the way, and I took a break. It was a little hard to be like AJ president, write books.
Oh my gosh.
Run a business and teach. So like something had to give. And So about 3 years there, I wasn't doing it, but I loved it. And then I've been really, really lucky that I've had the chance to go, all around the world and work with students at a ton of different institutions. And whether it's like just a workshop or going and doing a lecture and sitting in on crits, that's great. I mean, when you can go somewhere that you don't expect amazing work's going to be happening and you see incredible stuff, totally exciting. I mean, I love that. I think one of my favorite places I visited was I went to Kansas City and went to a little community college out there, and I thought, you don't expect much, and it was like the most spectacular work. It was just blew my mind, and I love that.
So then this is my question then. What do you think is that difference? There are a lot of great designers,
right?
But their work is all the same, right? Maybe production level. Then there are some who you look at and you're like, wow, this person's going to be an art director, a creative director in a matter of 2 or 3 years. Right. What do you feel like is that gap? What can we do to bridge that gap? And do you feel like in any of the colleges that you've taught at, that there are certain classes or certain skills that is taught to bridge that gap?
That is a great question. That's a really good one. And it's one I think everybody sort of grapples with, which is, well, how do you go from being proficient and good, to being kind of spectacular? And I've sort of found the commonality with most of the designers that I know that are, very successful and who I really think their work is amazing is that they don't ever accept the ordinary, right? It's always a matter of like, well, okay, this is what it's supposed to be, but what else can it be? What more can it be? It's like when I was starting out as a designer, I had Saul Bass was like an amazing mentor, and just one of the nicest, kindest people on the planet. And when I first started, and I think the very first phone call we got once the firm was up and running was from Saul, and he said, "Congratulations, so what can I do for you?" And I said, "You can give me advice. That's all I want. Just give me advice." And so I'd sort of get together with him every once in a while, and he said these great words of wisdom, and one of them was, a client will always give you the wrong assignment. And I'm like, what do you mean by that? And it sort of turned out to be the thing. That's the defining element that I've found. Good proficient designers take an assignment the client gives them and fulfills it, right? Like a client comes and says, I need a new logo and a stationery system. Good. You design a really well-crafted logo and identity or a stationery system. But the next level is to say, why do you need a new logo and a new stationery system?
Right.
Because maybe they don't need a new logo. Maybe they need an event. Maybe they need a new website. If the problem is, we're not reaching our audience, the logo's not going to do a damn thing. It's like, that's a nice tie. That's about it. So it's sort of like pushing deeper and finding out why, because clients typically only know what they know, right? They don't know they have other options. It's like if you went to your mechanic and you said, my transmission needs fixing, and hopefully your mechanic would say, well, yeah, but it could also be this, this, and this. And if you're smart, you're going to agree. Otherwise, you'd be like, no, I disagree. Just fix my transmission. So I think that's one of the big differences is that amongst all the designers I really respect, they're always willing to go in and say, stop, let's ask why. What's really going on here? And the solution may not always be a visual design solution. It can be other things as well. That's part of it. I think the other part of it, when you think about, okay, who graduates and gets out there and just immediately succeeds?
Right.
They're the people that are good designers, push limits, smart, responsible, but in reality, they're the people that you want to have lunch with. They're like, they're nice. They're easy to get along with. They're like, no one wants to sit in an office with someone who's like miserable, right? So it's just a sad fact of life. Like, nice people, go out, do well, be friendly. That's, about it. And that's tricky. I mean, I have a bunch of people graduating in a couple of weeks, and I'm always telling them, look, your work is just a backdrop. It's just your prop. It's to prove you're not a complete moron, you know, but you got to be a nice human being and talk to people and engage and be interested in their lives and what they're interested in. Your work is not enough to move you ahead in life. But that's why you succeed. I mean, you know, you're a lovely person. You're fun to hang out with. So, you know.
So basically you have to be a good doctor, not a waitress who just takes orders. You need to be a doctor, really like dive deep into the problem. And then you have to have good bedside manner, right?
Exactly. That's
okay.
a perfect analogy. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Cool. Thank you. That was a great answer. We do have a question here. Let's see. So Anthony's asking, looking at Vinelli canon, I see some strict rules to follow. What are some Art Center rules that govern type at Art Center?
I love questions like that. That is such a good one. I love that. I had someone in my office a couple days ago, and she was really, really freaked out. Like you know, to the point where you have to sort of say like, okay, relax. There's more important things in the world. But she talked to one professor who had told her rags on her type looked terrible. So she then talked to another professor, Simon Johnson, who you know, and Simon said, no, they look good to me, and you should do rags this way, which is the way she was doing it. So she came into my office, she's like, I don't know who to believe. Everybody telling, you know, I've got two different people that I really respect telling me different things. And, you know, I said, well, look, you know, in the end, it's subjective. I'm sorry, you know, it's like, I can't tell you there's one right way. And, you know, she of course wanted to hear, here's the way to do it, period. Like it's algebra. But you can't. And then so I gave her this book, which is Methods of Bookmaking, or Methods of Book Design, which was written in the 50s by this British dude who was super uptight. And got all the super uptight rules, like a rag must do this, you can never make a shape, your typefaces should only be these. I mean, it's got all the hard rules, you know. Mm-hmm. And I said, read it, and then you'll know this is what old school hard rules were. Right. But that doesn't mean you have to follow them. Right. You know, I said, your job is not to do, and nothing is supposed to be anything except amazing. Your job is to make it amazing, period. Like, you know, whatever you have to do. Now, that being said, you know, I have my own issues. So things like stretch type, go through that like a term ago, and I couldn't get past it. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm old, I'm boring, I cannot deal with rubber type. You know, it's just not working for me. So, you know, I have those kind of things, but for the most part, it's a matter of like, work with the best ingredients. So you make sure that you're working with cuts of a typeface that are well crafted. Mm-hmm. You know, I remind the students, when you download those free fonts, it's like hiring free hookers. It's not a good idea.
That's good. Oh, Sean, that's great.
Fonts, like, you know, use the well crafted one. And then, you know, as a rule, I tell people, just stick to the classics, you know, until you really have it down, you know, because if you choose something that you think is the grooviest, coolest typeface of the year, and you're like, I'm going to do everything on that, it will be like your high school haircut. You will look back and say, I am so embarrassed. Why did I do that? So, you know, if you stick with the classics until you really got it hammered down, then you can branch out.
Right. That's good. No, I do find that students do look for the right answer, right? They feel like it's just one thing, but there are a million different problems. So there's going to be a million different answers.
Exactly. And you know, maybe the solution is to do the wrong thing. And that's hard for people to understand, you know, especially when they're like, but tell me, the same thing with color, where, you know, people say, well, tell me what the right color combination is. I don't know, anything. Just, you know, just do it with some gusto.
All right, we have another question from Alex. Given all the innovations in typography and design software, what is the most exciting thing you see coming for the next couple of years in graphic design?
Such a good question. These are really good questions, hard ones. Okay, so I think there's always technological innovations, right? There's always sort of, and that's never going to change. That's been going on since, you know, the phototype started in the 50s. Right. So, you know, I see instances of interactive typography that are really exciting, of generative typography that, you know, is generating itself, which is exciting. That's great. I think they should be explored. We should be pushing technology. One of the things I'm really excited about that we're working on with the interaction design department is information design in VR, which, because the interaction department was like, oh, VR, that's great. No, we'll make some cool world with like weird mushrooms. But we're like, why can't this be about information design? If type was in 3 dimensions and multiple layers of information, what can we do with that? But in the end, I still kind of keep pushing back on the students of like, yeah, learn these technologies, push the boundaries of them, but you have to have a strong idea. I mean, you have to have a concept, and I hammer on that, not because I'm like, that's the only thing there is, but when you look at the threats to the industry, one of them being AI and machine learning, the fact that templating gets more and more sophisticated, like web designers, like,
yeah.
I mean, that fell apart fast, like, yeah, you're like big corporations are going to still need, really great UX and UI designers, but that bottom part of the market of sort of, mom and pop shops that needed websites, that's gone,
Right.
like, so now the same thing starts happening with other forms, other, areas we work in. You're in trouble unless you have good ideas. If you're willing to push alternative thinking and really question, and a machine can't do that, no matter what. There's no great template is going to actually be able to ask that big question, why, and really try to solve the bigger problem.
So technology, no matter what happens, you can basically survive any of these trends in graphic design as long as you have great ideas.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it doesn't mean like you got to have some pithy visual pun like all the time. It just means what's the big picture? What's the big issue that needs to be dealt with? And not getting caught up as, like you said, like being a waitress and a short order cook. You're not just taking orders, you're stopping and you're questioning. And that's hard. I know that. I know that, from my own experience of working with clients, they don't want to hear that. I mean, I have a client that is this remarkable recording artist, and she's having an exhibition at the Victoria and Albert Museum in September. And so I'm working on this little deck of cards, with NFC chips and looking at new technologies with her. And she first came and said, oh, I want to do these business cards. And I was like, well, okay, stop. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think they're really cool. This is what they have. And I'm like, no, stop. Why?
Mm-hmm.
And I could tell she was getting frustrated, and then she sort of clicked. She's like, oh, wait, you're right. It doesn't have to be what we expect it to be. And what do we really want to get out of this? And then it turned into like, well, let's do the cards, but now let's build an environment that goes with it. And let's do all this other stuff. And it got her, now she's all excited about it too. But there's that time when someone's like, no, you're not listening. I told you I just wanted a card. The one's like, well, no, sorry.
And that's good because the execution will be much more effective.
Oh, yeah.
And more memorable, right? Than a card, the business card.
Yeah, I don't want to just design like a set of business cards. And so in the end, it was great because, we really got to the heart of like, she wants this thing to be exciting. And then she was like, well, if there's a graphic design component to it, what else can we do? So they got the Design Museum in London involved. And they said, well, why don't we have 8 different designers from around the world, each one take one of the cards based on one of your lyrics and do something, whatever they want. And
great idea.
We'll do a set of limited edition signed posters that the proceeds can go to a charity that she really believes in. So I was able to just build the project and make it bigger, rather than just saying, okay, yeah, I'll do it. I'm done in an afternoon, and that's that.
And what's interesting about your suggested solution is that it's much more engaging to the audience than passive, where a business card is really just kind of passive, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Part of it was Moo as part of the project, and they had developed these NFC chip business cards. But the problem was that they're not inexpensive. It's like $1 a piece for one of these cards. Mm-hmm. And I think in reality, it's sort of like, okay, I can tap your phone with my NFC chip and the contact goes in there, but it'd be cheaper if I just typed it in. It's just like one of those like technology, a little overdoing something that like I don't want to do myself and save $1.
Right. So Alex, I hope that helped. And Alex has another question. Should graphic designers look to advertising classes or editorial illustration classes to get better at having good ideas?
I think yes. I think anywhere you can get them from good people is the right place to go. And when I say good people, which can be sometimes misinterpreted, what I mean is people that are engaged, like a faculty, a teacher that's engaged and wants you to succeed. That's the only acceptable kind of teacher that you want. You know, someone that's there to art direct or make their own ego feel better is not helping you. So I think, yes, if you can find anyone that wants you to succeed and bring out the best in you, whether it's editorial illustration or advertising or copywriting or comp lit or filmmaking, anything, you know, it just gets your mind working in new ways.
But you feel like it's the teacher who actually, the ones who push you that will make you get more out of, okay.
Exactly, it's the teacher. I mean, and we've all had that, right? We've all had teachers in our lives that were phoning it in, and even a class you really thought you were going to love, you just end up sort of like,
yeah.
And then teaching. I mean, I remember I had a class I was totally stoked on. I was like, you know, when I was in college, I was like, I can't wait. It was like architectural history, and I was like, this is gonna be so cool. Like, I loved architecture, and it was the most boring class on the planet. It was it was just boring. Like, the teacher would read out of the book, and then I had another class that was like feminist theory and post-Freudian concepts that I had to take as a requirement. And I thought, this is gonna be so boring. I can't believe it. And I loved it. The teacher was engaged, and like, she had amazing examples and really like made it clear that this wasn't just some big theory. I love that class. So it just depends on who's doing it, and you know, do they care? Are they alive?
Right. They're making it come to life, definitely.
Yeah.
So we have a couple more questions, and we have some more chat here. So we'll finish up. I know I haven't even got to my questions yet, but that's okay. This is great. So Merrick is asking, since you mentioned methods of book design, are there any other must-read books that you recommend to your students?
Well, I don't recommend my own books because that would be sort of self-promotion, which I think is awful. But if they weren't my students, I would recommend my own books.
These guys are not your students, so let's hear about your own books. Let's hear about that first.
Okay, so the books there's one that I wrote, I think must be 10 years old at this point, Logo Design Workbook, okay, which I really loved. That was a great book to work on because I think when I started, I wrote it with Terry Stone, and Terry and I were looking at the market, and there are all these identity books out there, or logo books, but they were very cagey. They were all very like, oh, here's an example of a nice logo, but we won't tell you how it was done. And it was all, and you know, I would talk to people that wrote those books, and they're like, well, I'm not going to give away trade secrets. So I'm like, let's give away the trade secrets. What the hell? Everyone just gets better. So that was a fun book to do. And then it followed up with a color design workbook, which just had a new edition released last year. And there's 2 or 3 others that are in there, but you know, including like the color, you know, the color dictionary. But and I just wrote one on super graphics. If you're interested in environmental design, that one actually was fun. I found amazingly cool stuff all around the world. But when students ask me, well, what should I read? I drag them to the Joseph Mueller-Brockman books. I'm like, you gotta read the Joseph Mueller-Brockman books. Okay, yeah, he was a super duper uptight Swiss dude, but you know, once you can master that, you know, you're set. And then the Meg's History of Graphic Design is, of course, fantastic. Otherwise, there's a great book, Understanding Comics, which sounds, why would I need to know that? But in reality, it's all about looking at things from different perspectives. It's about understanding narrative. And so when you're working on like the pagination of a book, you really start thinking filmically as opposed to like, okay, it's just page after page after page. Or when you're working an idea, you're like, okay, well, I could just show it one way, but what if I showed it from above? Or what if I showed it from a worm's eye view? So that's a great one. And then there's a book that I always refer my students to that I'm sure, are like, why? It's a book by David Halberstam called The 50s. And it has multiple case studies of different companies that came to life in the 50s that, you know, that were sort of the beginning of modern marketing and modern branding and business practices that we still live with, you know, that sort of shook up the world. And I mean, there's great examples in there. Just the McDonald's story is incredible, or the Holiday Inn story, or, you know, there's so many good ones in there. So
that's great. That's great. And Patrick is saying that understanding comics is the best for storytelling and art students. It's awesome.
Oh, yeah, it's a great one. Yeah, love that.
Excellent. Thank you, Breck, for the link. That's very, very helpful. Yeah. Okay, so another question, and you know what? Just want to ask you a really quick question on the book is, do you have any typography books that you recommend?
Well, I always go back to Methods of Book Design because it's super. Okay. I love the Encyclopedia of Typefaces, which is another sort of old school book, but it shows great examples of all the typefaces, but what they should look like. Like, so you can, you know, you find like, oh, I need, you know, a good cut of Gaudi, and you can go to the encyclopedia and there'll be an example of here's the original cut in metal that Fred Gaudi put together. And you can say like, whoa, that's, mine matches, it's great, or whoa, that's doggy ugly. You know? So I think that's a great one. And you know, there's like, again, like any Justin Miller book, Brockman book is great, you know, for type.
Good, thank you. Let's see, let's go through these questions. Okay, so Sarah's asking, over the course of your career, what are some things you've done to keep up your skills current and continuously learn new skills?
Well, I think if you ask a lot of people, they'd say I wasn't current and I had no skills.
That's not the case, Sean.
I think I'm just sort of like getting myself into trouble a lot. That seems to be like the thing to do. Paula Sharon once mentioned me like years ago. She said, "Look, if it's not scary, I don't do it." And I sort of feel that way too. That I sort of remember that, like, okay, if it's not challenging and I don't think I know how to do it, I don't need to. So if it's challenging and I think, yeah, I'm going to really botch this one up bad and I'm going to have to learn a whole bunch of stuff, I'll take it. I'll figure it out.
That's good. So you challenge yourself. That's awesome.
That's what keeps it fun, you know?
Right.
And if I fail, I fail. Big deal. Like, it's not like I'm operating on someone and it went horribly awry, you know? It's like, okay, I mean, I was working on the last AIJ design conference materials, and at one point I needed to figure out how to make a little motion piece for the super long screen system they had at the convention center in Minnesota. I had no idea how to do that. You know, so I'm like, okay, called a bunch of people, looked online, went on like LinkedIn Learning, like, you know, sort of figured it out. Yes, in the end it was awful, but you know, I at least got my foot in the door on the damn thing and kind of figured it out. And the next time I do it, it'll be better. But
that's great.
It's just jumping in, like figuring, hey, if someone else can learn it, I can too. Like, why not?
Great. I should just teach an engineering class just so I can learn a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so one last question from Patrick. We're going to finish up here in just a second. So Patrick asks, you reference classic graphic design practices as the basis of typography classes at ArtCenter. How is multiculturalism addressed in the curriculum and or working and designing for non-Latin language and letter form?
That is such a good question.
It's a great question.
Well, you have really good questions. These are great. That is such a good question. Okay, so there's two parts to that. One is multiculturalism in general. Okay, besides the AI machine learning threat to graphic design, there's the issue of diversity. So the last round of statistics that we pulled during my last term as AIJ president was the profession was 83% white, 60% women, but only 11% of the women have leadership positions.
Right.
Those statistics are not acceptable. That is like, if the profession itself cannot be representative of the population it's communicating to, it won't survive. There's no way you can have the only people communicating are, you know, 50-year-old white dudes. It's just not going to happen. You know, it will fall apart. So in order to combat that, it's a matter of like reaching out into communities that don't typically send their kids to design school, making it clear you can make a viable living as a graphic designer, and then embracing other cultures and not just teaching a Western-centric point of view. Right. You know, like people say, like, oh, well, you know, you're teaching design history. I'm like, I need to learn more about Chinese history. I don't know enough. Why are we only teaching European design history?
Good question.
I want to, I don't know anything about it, but I'm figuring it out. I'm talking to people in China, I'm talking to people in Korea, trying to figure out, well, if there's, what are some of those points of view? Same thing with, African American or Hispanic design language. What are those? We had a student last term who's actually Russian, and for her thesis project, she worked in Cyrillic. And it was great. She designed a beautiful typeface in Cyrillic and really explored some of those issues that are specific to the sounds that those make. So I think it's a matter of never being complacent, not ever just saying, it's fine, this is the way it's done. It always has to be challenged. It always has to be moved forward. And I've had people say to me, I think you're ghettoizing. If you go to San Diego City State College and you talk to the Latino students, you're ghettoizing them. And I'm like, I don't care if it's ghettoizing. If I can get the word out and someone might benefit, then I'll take that risk. That it has to be done. You can't just be so PC that we're like colorblind. It just doesn't work. I don't know if that answers it.
Yeah. Let's see. Did you address both sides? Yeah, got it. Okay, you did. Thank you so much, Patrick, for asking. And let us know if there was any more other questions attached to that. My last one question is basically, if you could talk a little bit about the difference in type education between the grad programs and the undergrad programs. Like, what are the grad students learning that the undergrads are not, or vice versa?
It's interesting. When we started the grad program, we kind of overestimated their typographic abilities. You think, oh, they're grad degrees in design, so great. They'll hit the ground running, and we'll launch right into strategic thinking, which is what the graduate program is more focused on, as opposed to form building and skill sharing. I'm sorry, that's a text from my mother. It bothers me all the time.
Hi, Mom.
So I wish if I were smarter, I'd be like, yeah, that's a text from a super important client I want to talk to. My mom. So when they started though, we were like, whoa, they really need some type education. Like even people like I had one of my students who she had an undergraduate degree from another top 10 school, great school, and I was like, so what's going on with the type? We're having a little trouble here. And she said, well, I took type, and I said, okay, well, which classes? She said, well, I took a class. I'm like, you took one class in type, and you have an undergraduate degree in design. Okay, well, so it really became an issue of like starting them out at the same level that we start out the undergraduates. That everybody rolls through the same basic Basel, Joseph Mueller-Brockman process. It speeds up faster. In the graduate program, though, like where the undergrads might spend the whole term working on an assignment like that, the graduates do it in the first half of the term, and then it branches into editorial and other kind of issues. Their time is so compressed. They're only here for 4.5 terms, so you just have to get it in there as fast as possible. But I'm amazed at how quickly they ramp up and get going. I think typographically, the grad students start focusing a little bit more on content, and the undergrads are focusing a little bit more on
execution
skills.
Okay.
And and so I've seen some of the graduate students, some of their work really addressing a bigger business strategic issue typographically, as opposed to like, oh, this is a really interesting solution to this music poster.
Good. So we have to wrap up. Thank you, Sean, so much for your time. But I wanted to say, from what you just mentioned, it seems like that students that spend more time in the curriculum with type get more out of it. So when you're talking about the grad students are coming in, maybe they've taken 1 or 2 classes, that really is the thing that bridges or that makes that gap, that creates that gap between those who are really great thinkers, really great typographers, and those who are just proficient.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I feel sorry actually in a way that when the undergrads graduate, I think probably have a little bit more skill typographically, but it's because they've gone through 8 terms of type.
Right. Yeah, that's a lot of type. Wow. I'm so jealous, but so jealous. So jealous. So thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Breck, for all the links, and Rochelle for all the information. Really, really appreciate it. And thank you, Sean, as well, for all your insights. And
my pleasure. Come down and visit.
I will. Actually, I walk down right now. We'll have a sandwich. All right. Bye, guys. Thank you so much. Have a good one.